Hey everyone, Philip here from Trial by Stone. On this episode of the podcast, we are giving away 3 teaser posters of the Dark Crystal Age of Resistance. And after we recorded the show, myself, Jaime and Ethan, we realized that there might be a bit of confusion of the rules within the actual episode. So because of that, I just want to state the rules. Number 1. Be a member of the Crystal Shard, which you can do so at facebook.com/groups/Crystal Shard. Number 2, listen up to the 3 questions that'll be asked by Ethan and Jaime. Number 3, email your answers to darkcrystalguy82@gmail.com with subject line giveaway. If you answer the 3 questions correctly, then you'll be put in a draw to win a teaser poster. Contest is open worldwide, and if you win, we'll contact you for shipping details and we'll announce the winners on the Trial by Stone Facebook page. The contest will end on the 30th of June, 2019, 12 p.m. Pacific Daylight Time. That's in the time zone that Los Angeles is in, for those worldwide that wanted to know about that. So anything about the rules within the episode, pretty much disregard what we said. Sorry about that. Good luck, and now on with the show.
Another world, another time, in the age of wonder.
You are listening to
Trial by Stone.
Trial by Stone!
Trial by Stone!
This is what I came for.
Your vital essence, the Dark Crystal.
I can feel something. Hear it almost.
Don't move.
Don't move? Where would I go?
Quiet!
Hello and welcome to Trial by Stone. This is your vital essence on all things the Dark Crystal. I'm your host, Philip Mitchell. Just want to say thank you so much for tuning into this episode as we're, anticipating the Age of Resistance. There's so much going on at the moment, a lot to break down. Of course, recently, last week, there was E3, of course, and the big news really came, there was many big news coming out of E3, but for Dark Crystal fans, of course, was a video game announcement that we had for the Dark Crystal Age of Resistance Tactics. So that will sort of be the main thing we'll be breaking down. A couple other things as well. So I just want to introduce everyone, my other co-hosts, Jaime Prater and Ethan Erskar. So Jaime and Ethan, how you doing?
Doing well. Another fine day.
I am doing great. I'm so happy to be here again, Stoners. How are you guys doing? Email us at trialbystone@gmail.com. I don't think that's our email. Let us know how you're doing.
No, our emails are darkcrystalpodcast@gmail.com. We'd love to hear from the listeners about, anything that's been happening in all things Dark Crystal. So, no, thanks again, Ethan and Jaime. And also, we got a special guest as well from the moderator of the Crystal Shard, which Jaime and Ethan also are as well. But the main moderator, I should say, of the Crystal Shard, a Dark Crystal fan group on Facebook. So, Doug Bodine, thanks for being on the show.
Glad to be here. I like that Ethan called everybody stoners. That's great. I think that's appropriate.
Yeah, that's sort of become the little nickname for the show at the moment, yeah. Yeah.
I imagine Rian saying, "Hey, stoners, hey."
What about Hup? Hup is a stoner.
Oh,
he
Hup's a
subscribes
total
to the
stoner.
podcast. You know he does.
Is Hup a girl or a boy?
Oh, I don't know.
I don't think
Yes.
he
I'd
knows
say he's a
You said
male
yes.
podling cook.
that. A male podling cook.
Yeah, he's always a cooking. He's got a ladle and everything. He's cooking something up.
Okay. I can't wait to meet Hup. It's awesome. Just an awesome character.
What's up?
What's Hup?
And of course, for any of the new listeners who are listening, to this for the first time, quite a few days ago, or probably about a week ago, actually, Pilot TV, might have been Empire actually, that released a new image from the Dark Crystal Age of Resistance, and it was a photo of Hup, Deet, and Rian. And yeah, sort of, they did look, I guess there's been a lot of jokes about them sort of looking a bit high, but it's all,
I don't think you can deny how he looked.
Yeah, you can't. You're like, dude, where's my Landstrider? What does your tattoo say? Gartham.
Any more of that, Crystal? That was awesome. That was a great game.
Well, what about Jeff Addis's awesome GIF walking up to the Burger King menu when you're too high?
And it has been pretty awesome, actually. The past couple of days of people who've worked on the show, like Jeffrey Addis and several other people that worked on the show, have been joining, these Facebook communities, especially with the Crystal Shard. So, which has really been really exciting to see about that. Yeah.
Yeah. So so about the Crystal Shard, I have to say that I am very excited with how things have happened. Jamie was with me from the very beginning, and I did not expect it to get to where it is today. Jamie might have, but I am still blown away by it.
Of course, that was 7 months ago now. I'm like, hey, if you need a moderator or an admin, I'll help you. And he's like, okay, maybe we'll see. And then, and then I was like, hey, you should bring Ethan on too. And then eventually Ethan came on. But I think we've gained, the group has gained, 1,800 members in the past month? Something like that. Something crazy like that. It's absolutely insane. But I feel like, Doug, you really set it up in a way that the Crystal Shard is, first of all, it's really well moderated. It's a very friendly group. Just a lot of great posts, a lot of people who are genuinely excited for the show, but also a lot of people who are like, hey, I'm excited. I'm not really familiar with everything, but I'm glad to be here. And then, we have people like Hallie Stanford, who's a producer on the show. She joined the group. And then, like Doug said, or Phil said, Jeff Addis, who's one of the writers, he's in the group. It's just, that's really an honor, to have that kind of attention.
I absolutely agree. It's really cool to see all of these people interacting about something that, I don't know, for me, for the longest time, Dark Crystal was something that was like the low end of the fandom. Like you said, oh, by the way, I also like the Dark Crystal. You know what I mean? But now it's like, it's everywhere, and I love it. I love to see it out in front like that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the show is really just making that big difference. Yeah, I think once the show is out, it's going to just reach out just to a whole new audience, and, even fans new and old, people that haven't seen the film in such a long time, just revisiting the world of Thra. I think it's just going to be an incredible time once it drops on August the 30th. And so I guess, we have talked about the trailer, myself and Jamie and Ethan. Doug, I guess I might as well just ask for, what was your thoughts when you saw the teaser trailer for the first time?
So after I got done crying and watching it again through tears, it blew me away. It was a phenomenal trailer. In fact, it had such a feel of the original that you wanted. I mean, we've seen the movie thousands of times, and it made you want to go back and watch the movie again in anticipation for it. When I was watching it, I'm thinking, wow, it opened the right way, right? It had Agra coming up over the hill, and you're just already amazed. You're already in that world, and then it throws you into the new stuff, right? Like Deet's walking and talking. She's talking to the tree, and then it bombards you with a whole ton of images. So you're like, what is that? What is that? What was this? And
you're afraid to blink.
You are afraid to blink, seriously. And then and you go back and you watch it. Seriously, you're watching it like 50 times, just trying to soak it all in.
Yeah, I mean, there was actually a lot in that trailer for a teaser trailer. And I know I had sort of did a crack of making a video about trying to break down that trailer as much as I can. But even after when I released the video, there was still a couple little things that I'm just like, totally didn't notice that this or that and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, it was just such an amazing trailer, and it was just actually just great to see just sort of the visuals that we've all been waiting for a good while. So it was just an incredible time, the couple of days when that trailer came out.
Well, and we keep getting new pictures, right? I mean, not just the trailer, but we keep getting new pictures of the characters and the different shots, which I don't think are going to end anytime soon. I think we're going to keep getting some more pictures. And that's just going to add to the excitement.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it seems like every couple of days, or at least once a week, we're just sort of getting some big announcement. We'll definitely get into later in the show that we'll definitely talk about the Dark Crystal Age of Resistance tactics. But also, I mean, while we're talking about with the trailer and also with the teaser trailer came a teaser poster for the Dark Crystal Age of Resistance, which is such a beautiful poster. And on this show, we are actually going to give away these posters for the listeners and to people, you know, that are checking out from the Crystal Shard that are listening to this podcast. And I might as well pass it on to you, Jamie, making it all happen. And I guess it was just great that was approved by Netflix. This is an approved contest, so there's a lot of work that went into this to make this happen.
Yeah, obviously the poster came out and all of us were like, oh, it's really great. It's very different from the original, but it's also very unique in its own way. It feels like the Dark Crystal. And there was, of course, a large version of this poster available through, I think it was Entertainment Weekly. And I got that version of it, and I was like, it'd be great if we could just kind of give these away in the contest. And then after talking with you, Phil, and then with you, Doug, I was like, hey, well, let's approach Netflix and see if we can give these away. And I contacted one of the people from Netflix, and they replied to me, and they said, sure, you can absolutely give it away. They have their own plans of what they're going to do, but it was nice of them to give us permission to do this. And I'm really big on community and engaging people, just kind of spreading the love. And I thought this was a great way to get people introduced to Trial by Stone, the Dark Crystal podcast, and the Crystal Shard, which is our official sort of Dark Crystal Age of Resistance and everything Dark Crystal group. And it was a great way to kind of present each portion of that in tandem, and also provide like 3 amazing posters to 3 lucky guests. And so then, or not lucky guests, I'm sorry, 3 lucky members of the Crystal Shard. So the rules are, we're going to have 3 questions. The first one's going to be asked by Ethan, who came up with these, and I'll pass it on to him in a minute. But we wanted to kind of make this a contest where people have to be members of the Crystal Shard discussion group, number 1. And then number 2, you have to answer these questions at the end of the podcast today. The 3rd question will be asked. So you have to listen to through all of the discussion today, and then send in your answers, and I will let Ethan tell everyone what that email address is. But first, before he does that, we can start with question 1. So I will pass it to Ethan. And Ethan, how did you come up with these questions?
So I didn't want to go into the books and the comics and get questions from there, because I didn't think it'd be very fair for people to have to dig those up or purchase those. And, it's not exactly Googleable. Like, I don't know, Ethan, what's with the hard questions? Come on. So these are questions that you could get from either darkcrystal.com or from watching the movie. Do you want me to go ahead and ask question 1, or?
Yeah, let's do it.
Yeah, let's get into this.
Let's get
question
into it.
number
Let's
1.
Come on, stoners.
Come on, stoners. All right, question 1. What is the name of the creature that raises Jen out of the swamp?
I know this one.
Me too.
Okay.
All right, so email your answer to darkcrystalguy82, that's 82, @gmail.com.
All right, question 1 out of the way.
Yeah, absolutely. And of course, we'll definitely put this email in the show notes. But yeah, of course, if you listen to the show to find out about the 2 other questions that you need to answer for a chance to win Dark Crystal Age of Resistance poster. So which is all really exciting. We might as well jump into the big announcement that came out of E3. Like, this is something I've always wanted to have, a Dark Crystal video game. I actually appeared on a podcast probably almost a year or so ago through Interactive Artistry Studio with Albert. He's from Australia, and he did a podcast. We did a podcast, sort of a hypothetical, the ideal sort of video game that we'd love to see. And the first episode happened to be a Dark Crystal video game. And so I was on the show, and we sort of talked about sort of ideas of what we'd love to see if there was a Dark Crystal video game. Of course, I mean, for me, growing up, I guess, with Legend of Zelda, I would love to see like an open world sort of RPG, Dark Crystal, like Legend of Zelda kind of style video game. And, never anticipating that we'd ever see a Dark Crystal video game happening ever. So it was such a surprise with E3, especially during the Nintendo presentation. And I think it was like the 2nd or 3rd, video game to actually be featured. that we got that teaser trailer or the announcement, I guess you could say, for.
It was a surprise for me. I don't know about you guys.
Was it a surprise for you? Yeah, Jamie?
Am I surprised? No. Number one, because the show is on Netflix, and I know that Netflix is, and this is a partnership with Henson, so it seems like they're trying to really make this a huge property. And so how do you make this a huge property? You have tie-ins. So I wasn't really surprised. I'll tell you what I am surprised over. I want that, like, I was watching the gameplay, which we'll get to, but there's some gameplay videos up there, and I'm not a gamer. I mean, I grew up with Nintendo, and I really, played old school Mario Brothers and all those things. I mean, I grew up with Atari too, playing Joust and all those things. But these days, I just don't have the attention span for games. But I'm sitting there watching the gameplay, and I'm like, I'm buying this. I'm buying the Switch, and I'm buying the game. I'm like, I want to be a girl-girlfling, and I want wings. I'm totally buying it. So that's kind of what's surprising to me. I'm like, I'm watching this on my screen in my bedroom, and I'm just like, oh my God, this looks like so much fun. And I don't usually respond that way. Like, I run an Alien podcast, and there's Alien Isolation, which is one of the greatest games ever that people say, and I've tried to play it. I'm like, no, not interested. But I see the Dark Crystal game. I'm like, I'm playing this game. I want it. So I am so excited.
The awesome thing about the game, it is actually coming out pretty much on every platform that exists. So whether PC, Mac, the Switch, PlayStation, the Xbox One. So it's coming on a lot of platforms. But yeah, I think for me, I'll definitely be getting it on the Switch. Which, I mean, the big thing about the Switch that I love the most about it is being able to play games on the go. So it's like you can take your games with you wherever you want. Whereas with the other consoles, of course, you're just restricted to, you have to play it on the TV, that sort of thing. So that would definitely be my console of choice for this game, yeah.
Yeah, definitely. So the great thing I noticed about this is that it's your turn-based strategy game, right? So it's not an open world RPG like Philip was saying, which, by the way, that would be a dream come true if we ever got an open world RPG game. That would be.
Can you guys describe phenomenal. What that means? Like, what does turn-based mean as opposed to open world?
So turn-based strategy is you have your player character, right, and then you have the PC, the non-player character. Well, they're not non-player. They're player characters controlled by the console, right? So then what you do is you're taking your characters, and it's turn-based in that you have to take your turn and come up with a strategy about where you want certain characters to go with certain abilities in order to combat the opponents. Okay. And so you have missions, you have goals that you have to attain through each level. And it's mainly, you have to fight so many baddies, you have to fight through a certain path, and you have to attain something which takes you to the next level. So that's what this is going to be. This is going to be a turn-based tactics game.
Got it.
So it's not an open world game. You don't get to control a character like Mario, so it's not a side scroller, but it is a very intelligent, it's a very cerebral type of game, because you're having to think not just the move that you're making now, but you're having to think many, many moves ahead.
One of the big things that they really talked about in this game is sort of elevation. So you could have like a Gelfling standing on top of the platform, and the advantages of being on the high ground, essentially, if they use the bow and arrow, for example, to take down like the other Gelflings or all the Skeksis, that sort of thing. And I think, and also like the environments that they can change in these battle campaigns as well. So it's really interesting. So, I mean, even though, like I said earlier, that, I would love to see this open world RPG kind of video game if it does happen down the track. For a first modern Dark Crystal video game, because, I mean, really, the only Dark Crystal video games we had was back in the 80s on the...
Oh, yeah, the Sierra text game, the horrible graphics.
Yes, yeah.
And then there was that one that came out online that somebody created, a fan created. I don't know if you guys remember that one, that... It was kind of like an exploratory game, kind of.
Oh, yeah, I know what you're talking about. I think this French fan made it. I want to say Marion.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah, it was
I know what you're talking about.
And actually, I mean, for any listeners, you can actually go to darkcrystal.com, and if you go to, I think if you click on play, you can actually play that Sierra text adventure game of the Dark Crystal. Yeah. So, but yeah, I mean, but for a first, modern, Dark Crystal video game, based on what we saw from the trailer, but also, really I think what we were all waiting for, that gameplay footage. looked, it really looked pretty good. And we got introduced to 3 characters that we start off with. So we've got, I love the names of like some of these characters, like the Fizz Gig is called Boggy, and he's a healer gig. So we got different kinds of Fizz Gigs that sort of have their own abilities, and so you got a healer gig, and what else? Florette, who's a sage, who looks a bit Drenchen to me, and then the other character is Kevin, who looks like a guard. I don't know, Sprighton or Stone in the Wood sort of clan. I'm not too sure, but it was kind of cool. And
what's his name?
Kevin.
Sounds like Kevin, but it's
It
Kevin.
sounds like
with
Kevin.
2
Yeah.
So it's not Kevin with a V, it's Kevin with a B.
Yeah. So Kebbben.
Big difference.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, Kevin. What's up, Kevin? But you know what I find interesting about the game, at least, well, watching the panel, watching them discuss it, how they were talking about like how rich the world of the Dark Crystal is, and they really wanted to be true to it, and talking about Age of Resistance, and the lady who was hosting the panel, she was like, I bet you guys probably know how Age of Resistance ends and all of these things. And he's like, yeah, and we had to block our windows out, and people, if people had to come in, we had to turn our monitors off so people wouldn't, know what we were doing. They were doing a lot of research to make the game feel authentic to the series and the original film. So knowing that, going into the game, you see these characters, these Gelfling, essentially, with these powers, these kind of powers, these magical whatever, these things that they can do. And if they're being that original to the show and to the original film, my mind, all the gears in my head are like turning like, well, what can the Gelflings do? And if I've only read the first J.M. Lee book, but I do know in that book, which is, I believe, Shadows of the Dark Crystal, the central character, Naya, she seems to have this sort of organic power that surrounds her, where she can talk to things and talk to animals. And that's evidenced in Kira a little bit, but I feel like we don't even know what we're going to see when Age of Resistance drops.
It's an expansion of her dreamfasting ability.
Yeah,
She has the ability to dreamfast with animals and plants, whereas most Gelfling only dreamfast with other Gelfling.
It'll be interesting to see, though, if certain clans can do certain things.
That's what I was going to say. That would be so cool to see. Yeah. So the thing we have to remember about video games is it's a different medium than books and TV and movies. So it has to be a little bit more adventurous. It has to be a little bit more exciting. So we're probably going to see things that the Gelfling probably won't do in the series, right?
That's a good point. Yeah.
Only for the
there
game.
Are Gelfling mystic arts, but they're probably not going to shoot flamethrowers out of their hands.
Exactly. So it's making for exciting gameplay, but trying to also stay true to the story. And then they have to have this balance where, okay, well, if we did it exactly like we did it on the TV show, that's not going to be really exciting for gameplay. So we have to kind of ramp it up a little bit.
Yeah, and I know like one of the examples, I think they actually talked about on the video, but they talked about like scale, for example. So like on the gameplay, obviously the Fizz Gigs looks so much bigger, like, in scale compared to Gelflings, and the Gelflings and the Skeksis, they seem to have, sort of similar height to each other. But of course, I mean, you had to do that in this video game, because if you did it by scale, Fizz Gig would just look small. You could just be almost like a dot, as described it, sort of. Yeah,
Fizz Gig would be 5 pixels. Yeah. People would be like, "What is that?"
Exactly. So yeah, of course, they had to take some liberties and a bit of sort of an interpretation, in a way. So yeah, which is really cool. So it's just really really exciting about that video game, and there just seems to be quite a lot. I think there's going to be like 80 campaigns, and you can play through the events of the show. And then there's side quests and arenas, and
yeah, you make a really good point about what they call season plus. You can play the way the Age of Resistance series is gonna to play out, and I think that is so interesting. What's Age of Resistance gonna be like? Are we gonna see lots of battles? How much creative liberty were they given in the game?
I know that there's going to be battles on screen, because they mentioned that That was one of the big things they wanted to put. They wanted to have this battle between good and evil, and how can you have that battle without actual battles, right? So they're going to have that in the series, so you definitely want to see that in the video game.
It was just so interesting to, with watching the video. I think that gameplay video was sort of the big thing that I was just waiting for, and it did happen eventually on day 3 of E3. And yeah, it was awesome just to see what the gameplay was like. And they did mention at the time that that's still very much in development, and those levels that we saw, they were made like specifically like for E3. So they're not something that will appear sort of in the final version of the game, but at least it sort of gave us a really good idea of how the game sort of plays out. So, and also, I mean, like, one of the many things was, like, I think they even mentioned that you can play up to 20 heroes in the game. So, like, to start off with, of course, you get 3 with the 3 heroes, but later on down the track, you can get up to 20 heroes to play as, and you have up to 8 abilities. So you start off with probably 4, but expands to 8, and yeah, it seems to be quite a lot that's going to be in this game. So it's just really exciting, yeah. So I think there's just a lot to look forward to with the Dark Crystal Age of Resistance Tactics. Again, we don't have a release at the moment. It's just going to be scheduled sometime later this year. I think the 4th quarter of 2019, which I'm sort of anticipating probably a November release, which I think we might talk a little bit down the track why I think with that month sort of being the sort of almost a launching pad with a lot of merchandise that's going to come out. But yeah, we've got a lot to look forward to, and we'll definitely expect a lot more updates on that video game in the near future. Well, we might as well do the second question for the giveaway of the Dark Crystal Age of Resistance posters that we're giving away, thanks to Netflix, and also to the Crystal Shard and Trial by Stone as well. So I think we'll get on to question 2. I don't know, maybe I'll pass it off to you, Jamie. You can have a go with the second question of this contest.
Okay, so for our second giveaway question, the question is, in the opening narration, we're told that there are 10 remaining Skeksis and Mystics. How many were there in the beginning? That's a really good question. I don't even think I know the answer to this question. I don't even think I know how to find the answer to this question. Maybe, I don't know, probably on darkcrystal.com. But it'll be interesting to see what people come up with. And I don't know the email address that you're going to send these questions to, but when you have the third one, send all 3 questions in one email to what email account, Ethan?
Yeah, it'll be in the show notes, but send it to darkcrystalguy82@gmail.com.
Awesome.
I know that this topic has come up many times on Crystal Shard, so
Yeah. So yeah, and I mean that's a big thing, I guess. Like with the show is getting to see like the new Skeksis and potentially Mystics. I know we haven't seen many Mystics at the moment, but yeah, it's going to be really interesting to see these new characters sort of coming to life. And yeah, so again, email your answers to darkcrystalguy82@gmail.com, and also use the subject line giveaway. I think for a subject line.
Giveaway, yeah, or
AOR poster giveaway or something like
Stoners, something.
that.
Or still make up your own subject, and if I think you're super funny, I'll just choose you anyway, even if you get them all wrong. Just kidding.
The fun that we have here on Trial by Stone.
And Ethan.
Yeah. and so I guess, we'll get on to the next sort of topic that I sort of was briefly mentioning about it with November, sort of being the big launching pad for merchandise for the Dark Crystal Age of Resistance. And recently, I think this was posted on the Trial by Stone Facebook page, was the front cover for J.M. Lee's. Well, he's actually doing sort of a character guidebook on all things Age of Resistance, which is called the Dark Crystal Age of Resistance, Heroes of the Resistance, which is due to be released, I believe, on November the 12th. So yeah, the front cover just came out. So it's a guide to the characters of the Dark Crystal Age of Resistance, Heroes of the Resistance, by J.M. Lee. So yeah, I mean, it just came out, and of course it uses the three images. I think the very first photos that we got of the three characters. So, and I just love the use of the purple and the background, and it's just a very nice cover. So this is a lot to look forward to with that, and as well as I know there's going to be another sort of the making of Age of Resistance, the art and making of the Dark Crystal Age of Resistance, and I think that's going to come out around that same time as well. So talking about like those things that just sort of came out, of course, everyone's excited about Dark Crystal, and it just seems like the Dark Crystal is just keeps getting expanding more and more. So I would love to sort of, talk about sort of what we'd love to see now that Dark Crystal is expanding. Like, what could be the next things that, we'd love to see? And I think I might start with you, Doug.
One of the things I really want to see is I want to see the Gelflings be Gelflings without having to worry about, saving their village or running away from Gartham. The world of Thra is so big, and I just love to see them go on an adventure that's outside of the, saving the crystal or something like that. And to me, that just makes the world a little bit more richer, right? You're seeing a little bit more of the detail of the things that when they're not necessarily in crisis mode or when things are constantly happening around them. I still think it would be a great idea to have a little Gelfling podling adventure go on. One little Gelfling and a podling go around. Maybe Hup, I don't know. He seems like a great guy.
Yeah, just to sort of have that bit of that slow pace, I guess. I mean, even the Dark Crystal, sort of has, sort of takes its time to build up the world, sort of to see that sort of world building, I guess, getting to know the Gelflings a lot more and the Podlings a lot more. And so just sort of their own adventures before they sort of get put in the middle of the action, that sort of thing, yeah.
Well, I mean, an action's always good.
Part of comic of the mechanic on the Skekmobile. I mean, I'm totally on board. Absolutely.
Oh, heck yeah.
Yeah. Like, he has to go find a part for the Skekmobile, and he goes on a quest with his pet Fizzgig. Let's go.
Let's do it.
The Skek big wheel.
I think the wheels on that thing are like bugs or something. They don't look like regular wheels.
I think
it's actually the
in the book, right?
Skeksis. Yeah, it's the Skeksis that they hate the most that put into the tires, and they run as fast as they can in these little balls.
Oh my gosh! Stop it!
It's canon. The Chamberlain's in there just running.
It's all Flintstones.
Faster, Skek Tag! Faster!
To the Skekmobile. Chamberlain. Skeksil.
But I think it would be cool though to see the world a little bit more. I mean, you can have some Gartham, you can have some exciting events happen, but it would just be really fun to see the Gelfling just interacting with the world around them and going about having their own little adventures. I think that aren't necessarily so grand.
I agree. And one thing that if anything, I have more questions than I have sort of what ifs. Like, now that we see the world of the Dark Crystal or the world of Thra or the universe or whatever opening up, my questions are, and I've posed these questions in the group, like, certainly in terms of the shard. So where did that shard go when it first cracked from the crystal? Whose hands did it fall into first? Who tried to heal the crystal first? How did it end up in Aughra's? Did Aughra know she even had it? Maybe she did, maybe she didn't. To me, those are stories right there. But also, I do like the idea of Jen and Kira not becoming the Skywalkers of this series, where we don't really, for instance, by the time we get to the events of the Dark Crystal, it was because of something Deet did that made what Jen and Kira did possible. And without Deet, it wouldn't have happened. Setting things up like that so everyone is important, because I know that can be an issue with sequels or prequels or they pivot back to these kind of legacy characters. And I'm not saying that this is what the writers have done. I don't know. But oftentimes in prequels or sequels that haven't worked, they'll pivot back to legacy characters because they're afraid a little bit of, like, of stepping too far away from nostalgia and doing something new. But I feel like from what I've seen in terms of the trailer, they're not afraid, and they're taking risks, and the characters already feel familiar, and they feel like, and I think we've discussed this before, even in groups and in group chats, like, I'm sold on Hupp. Like, I love this character. I don't know anything about him, and I love him. I love Deet. I'm rooting for her. I don't even know what I'm rooting for, So I feel like the setup is there. All of it. It's just amazing, and just obviously the visuals of the trailer are just mind blowing. But I really, but again, I have questions like, did everyone, we discussed this before, like, does everyone, like, were Jen and Kira the last Gelflings, or they only thought they were? Who else was hiding? How many stories
I hope they weren't
set up?
last.
You hope they weren't?
I hope they weren't. Yeah.
Yeah. And I don't think that they were, to be honest with you. I feel like, the world's a big place, and imagine like feeling like you're the last human on Earth. The Earth is a big place. There's probably that's probably not possible.
Well, it's one thing to go through your adventure thinking that you are the last, but then, afterward you find out, oh my gosh, there was this whole other area, this whole other region full of Gelfling, and they were just scared to come this way or something,
Yeah. I just think of the Vapra Castle. I don't know what that's called. Or Vapra, I don't know how you say that word, which is a clan. I think it's like the big clan. That's where the All Madra, and I'm sorry everyone, I'm throwing these words out. These words are from the books.
Spoilers, Jamies.
It's not plot. It's not a plot. And I don't know, because I haven't read the books. I've only read the first one. Anyways, but I think of like the houses of the old ones in the original Dark Crystal, and how you walk in there and you're hearing something in the air, you're feeling it, the Gelflings are feeling it, and I think about like what the Vapra Castle looks like at that point, what those ruins look like, who could be living over there, could it be Brea, could it be or Brea's grandchildren or whatever, like the idea of how many stories are now available because of the Age of Resistance existing. So that really excites me. The questions excite me more.
And especially like because the Dark Crystal really takes place, thousands of years of history. That is in the Dark Crystal, with the different conjunctions happening every 1,000 years. Like, beyond Age of Resistance, they can always tell stories, really back in the early days, like before the Urskeks first arrived on Thras. You could see like sort of those stories are just purely about the Gelflings. So yeah, just so much other potential, different time periods that they can really explore if they wanted to. Yeah.
So speaking of time periods, this is a quick question of mine. When does the Wall of Destiny, like, when is it created? Is it created during this time, or is it already exist, do you think?
Well, I mean, Ethan will know. I'll have a go at it. But I think it's probably going to be somewhat created during the events of the show. What about yourself, Ethan? What are your thoughts on that?
No, yeah, I agree. I suspect that's what the season is going to be all about. The world.
I guess it would make sense since it's the downfall of Skeksis, right?
According to the old lore, I don't know what they're going to do in the show. It's all up for grabs now. According to the old lore, the real battle between the Skeksis and the Gelflings didn't begin till the prophecy was made. The Gelflings and the Podlings were getting abducted, and their essence was being drained. And when the Gelfling discovered this, they created the prophecy, and they saw Jen heal the crystal, and they saw the destruction of all their clans. And that's when their dreams were made stone and the wall was formed. And the Skeksis, they saw the wall and they created the Gartham in response to it. So I think that in the new show, we're probably going to see the discovery of the treachery of the Skeksis, and the response to that. It'll probably end up maybe at the end of the season. That's when they create the wall. And maybe a season 2 would be the creation of the Gartham. I think season 1's going to be about the teasing of the Gartham. Are these the Gartham? Are these the Gartham? The proto-Gartham.
Proto-Gartham, yeah.
Looks all like Gartham. So do those spiders.
And also the show is really going to establish all the different Gelfling clans, because, I mean, there's 7 of them on the show. So they've got that to sort of build that up as well. So I would imagine like some of our heroes sort of visiting each clan area and sort of telling them about the news and all that kind of stuff. So I could definitely see the potential, of that world building, I guess, with the Gelflings, throughout the show.
Which brings me to an interesting point, and it's something that you've discussed, Ethan. I don't think this season of Age of Resistance is going to be about the Shard whatsoever. It's not about the Shard. It's going to be about what you hinted at, like what's happening to the Gelflings, their essence, or whatever things that we've seen in the original film. And that's going to be sort of the horror of Discovery. The Shard is probably not going to come into play until maybe the end of season 2, if there is a season 2, or beyond. Because we've seen sort of that story, but I think that's going to be its own journey, and it's going to be a whole journey in a separate season. Like the Discovery, who has it, where is it, Skeksis after it, Gelflings after it, and how that all this transpires. But for now, this is a whole different story, and it's kind of the beginnings. So I'm so excited.
The comics do establish where the Shard is and how Augur got it. I don't know if that's still the case in Age of Resistance in their canon, but
which comic was that in, Ethan?
Creation Myths. Creation Myths.
Oh, that's right.
They do depict Augur finding a bunch of shards, and one of those shards are the Shard. I do think that the Shard really can't come into play until the Dark Crystal film, because the prophecy specifically states, when single shines the triple sun. So the crystal can't be healed yet, not for another, till the next great conjunction,
However long.
But there can even be Gelflings who have the Shard in their possession, and it becomes like almost like the One Ring, where it's this contention, where it's kind of driving people a little bit crazy. Who's in control? Who has? I mean, again, there are so many stories, and even though they might have to wait, and even though the original Dark Crystal film is sort of that last fulfillment of the prophecy, that the Shard could almost be its own heirloom, its own whole mythology until it reaches that point.
And in a slippery, you don't know if the comics even count anymore.
Which they don't seem like they will.
The grabs.
Yeah, because really the big thing that started with this whole sort of timeline thing is with Dark Crystal Age Resistance Tactics. They mentioned about the show taking place about 100 years before the events of the film, which of course sort of has some issues, especially with Legends of the Dark Crystal, which was like a manga series that came out quite a while ago. I think even before Creation Myths, that takes place 250 years ago. But that story would take place after Age of Resistance. So I know there's sort of, those issues are sort of popping up, that it's getting to the point where I think whether, we might just see a complete sort of reboot of the canon, and whether the canon is just going to be the film, of course, and then you got Age of Resistance, and it's probably just those two things. I mean, we don't even know if if the books, if Joe's books will continue to be part of the canon, or if they're just going to start from scratch now that we've got this show. And also, I guess with Joe's books, that I remember when they announced the show for the first time, and the synopsis was very similar to the books. Even to me, I was like, how can it have like two, like a book and a TV show with sort of the same synopsis of Gelflings trying to discover about what the Skeksis are up to? Yeah, I mean, what are your thoughts on that, Ethan? I know that's probably a big thing that we sort of talked about the whole canon and all of that. Yeah,
canon really is slippery. If you listeners are a little bit aware of the releases in the last 10 15 years, there's the comics, there's the manga, and the manga that came out in 2007 did take place 200 years before the events of the film, and that manga does establish that the Gartham Wars started about maybe 25 50 75 years before even then. And so it does cause some contradictions for Age of Resistance. One theory I've got is everything is quasi-canon. Nothing is ever going to line up. I think everything is myths and legends and quasi-canon. Did Legends of the Dark Crystal happen? Well, yes, it's got Skeklock, it's got Skeklock the Collector, and Actually, I think it's Skeklak. I don't know why I said that. Skeklak the Collector and another Skeksis that I can't remember. Anyway, it introduces 2 new Skeksis. Those are going to be in the new series. Will they be exactly the same as in the manga? I don't think so. I think that it's all myths and legends and stories and songs that the Gelflings tell each other. And so when you ask yourself, wasn't that supposed to take place about 200 years before the events of the film? Well, according to some legends, yes. According to others, no, it's all point of view. It's all song and story and rumor. And that's why, I thought, Skeklak, had a claw, in certain points of view, yes, maybe no. Anyway, but turning over to J.M. Lee's books, it is a little odd that, they're so similar, right? They both feature a green-skinned girl, a Gelfling girl, and I presume, their attempts to tell the Gelfling clans about the treachery of the Skeksis. And they both feature Rian, and they're very, very similar. I do wonder if maybe the books, J.M. Lee's books, was supposed to be what Age of Resistance is, and then the Age of Resistance deal landed, you know what I mean? Like, maybe when Joe started writing the books, the Hensing Company did not have a deal with Netflix. Then it did come through, and maybe they said, let's alter J.M. Lee's books a little bit, and they tell their own story. And now Age of Resistance is its own thing, and I think that's gonna really expand this world of Thraw.
Is Naya Groton as well?
Naya is a Drenchen.
Drenchen.
Drenchen
Okay.
tend to have locks of hair, and they do have green skin.
So they have green skin like the Grotons. Because Deet has green skin.
We haven't seen any more Grotons. We've only seen Deet.
Okay.
There are what seems to me about 2 or 3 Drenchens on the Skekmobile in the teaser trailer, and they have dreadlock hair, and they have green skin. All we know about the Groton clan is Deet is part of it. We haven't seen any other ones, and there are supposed to be only a few of them, so they might look all very unique, very different. I don't know. Maybe Deet looks like them, maybe she doesn't. I don't know.
She's just such a mysterious character, like out of the 3, and it's going to be interesting to learn more about her in the show, and especially of the Groton clans, because like you said, that there are a very small clan. I think there's only like 37 of them that was sort of mentioned in the books, but whether that's going to be, established as canon, who knows? So it's going to be really interesting.
What I hope, I don't know how things work with Henson or Netflix or whatever in terms of like how they decide what is canon and what isn't, but I know through discussion, our private discussions and watching the trailer, we've kind of realized, Ethan, you saying, oh no, it was supposed to be 100 years or 250 years, and we kind of came to a speculative decision that they're using the expanded universe as sort of like a Bible, and they're pulling this from here and this from here because this is awesome and that was a great idea. But I think it would be appropriate for Henson, because they're sort of the owners of this IP, to come out and say, just proclaim what myth means. Like, okay, these are legends, and when we say legends, we mean it might have not all happened this way. And when we say myths, this means, yes, it's a myth. It might have not, this might not have happened this way either. Just so when people start buying these books and finding them on Amazon or wherever, because some are hard to find, they're not confused. Because really, if they don't make a proclamation or some type of official statement about what is canon and what isn't, even on their website, I don't mean Cheryl Henson's going to come on a video and say this is canon and this isn't, but just sort of so, hey, this is how this is what we see. This is expanded universe. This is canon to the Age of Resistance show, just so that people in the groups are like, oh, hey, I just read this book, and why doesn't this make sense with the show? And I think it's important that people not be confused. I mean, is it the end of the world if they're confused and the show comes out? No, it's not. But I think that because, you have the Star Wars expanded universe, and there's books and
And like for any of the new people trying to get into the sequel trilogy, it was going to be hard to follow, like, all these, different stories that happened in the past, and especially with contradictions as well that they wanted to put in the films. Like, they didn't want to be beholden to all the stuff that happened before. So for them to have the fresh start, I mean, I really liked it, because it just gave everyone sort of a fresh start look at Star Wars, and being able to like read the books, the first lot of canon books and stuff that, we're all with that, everyone was sort of like on the same page.
There is a lot of Dark Crystal expanded universe though, so I think not that the fandom has been huge, because it hasn't been. I mean, only now is it like turning into sort of a smaller version of what Star Wars. I mean, how many groups are popping up, and just people are excited, and it's on Netflix, which is the largest streaming service there is. I do think it would do fans a service to just simply state, we're starting clean. These belong in myths and legends, so we recognize them, but Age of Resistance and the Dark Crystal and J.M. Lee's books are canon going forward in their own universe. I just think it would be useful. Not necessary.
Useful, but I highly doubt they'll do it. I think they're going to do what Doctor Who does, and Doctor Who does not have an official canon. 2 episodes back to back could contradict each other.
Oh my gosh, Doctor Who is so crazy.
Yeah, I mean, what's the Doctor's origins? Like, what's the Doctor's home planet like? Like, everything contradicts each other. You can chalk it up to, time travel, different dimensions. I mean, they just keep going forward and adding stories, and it's all about fun and adventure at the end of the day. I think that with Dark Crystal, as opposed to Star Wars, where for 20, 30 years, thousands of people collected the comics and the novels and all the material, and they, made encyclopedias and memorized fun facts and stuff. Compare that to the Dark Crystal. I mean, there's really only one moron that actually sits in their basement and does that, and that's me. I'm just kidding. But
but we appreciate you doing that, Ethan.
Well, thank you so much. I mean, I'm the one that's been complaining about, Power of the Dark Crystal. It's like, that doesn't match up. That doesn't line up.
Well,
I mean, that,
hopefully,
and it is frustrating.
Power of the Dark Crystal isn't canon. It's just not a good story. So
I know, right? I really hope they add something to take.
I tried really hard to love that story.
Oh, I know. Yeah, if anyone's listening, I mean, let's just knock that into Legends or, canon. It was a cute little thing, but
it just did not fit. It could not fit. No matter how I wrap my head around it, I would find another contradiction that would be like, oh, okay, no, that doesn't.
And the big contradiction, the kind of the elephant in the room is you don't have a prophecy. You don't have hundreds or thousands of Gelflings die just so the prophecy doesn't even matter in the sequel. You know what I mean? So, and I think that points to, and I know we gotta kind of have to wrap up soon. It points to, in my opinion, mythology is important. Getting your mythology right is important, because mythology has its power because it's consistent. And we've even seen issues of this and I don't want to get too far into it, but I'm just, as an example, as much as I love this new Star Wars films, the question is, well, what are these about? I don't really know. You had Luke Skywalker, who was kind of there. He was fulfilling the destiny. And then you have these new people, and the Skywalkers are kind of involved. And you don't really know what these things are about. So I think it's important with mythology that there's continuity, so that by the end of this story, this mythology was powerful, because these stories were being told consistently throughout the history of these creatures. So I do think it's important that Henson or someone make a statement. Is it going to happen? Maybe, maybe not, probably not. I don't know, but I think it does. So that's just my 2 cents. But I think we should throw it back to Ethan for the last question.
All right, yeah. To answer this question, you might have to go watch the movie again and pay close attention to when Jen and Kira first meet. In the Dream Fast, what is the first thing that Kira remembers? Watch that scene, pay attention, listen to what they're talking about, what they're saying. Listen to that, email me what you think, and and we'll see if you win a poster.
So yeah, there are your 3 questions. So send an email to darkcrystalguy82@gmail.com. Subject line giveaway, and yeah, I mean, if the first 3 that are correct score themselves a teaser poster. So which is all really exciting. Yeah.
Good luck to all the Crystal Shard followers and the Trial by Stone listeners. It's gonna be great to see
Good
all
luck.
the
I don't even know the answers. Well, I know the answer to 1, but that's it.
Yeah. So yeah, and I mean, like for me with Dark Crystal expanding, yeah, I mean, I'm just looking forward to what they do with it. To be honest, like, I mean, as for the canon, yeah, I mean, I would love to see the Henson Company sort of establish like what is going to be the canon sort of moving forward. I think if they did have to, take some stuff off, the canon or whatnot, I'm very open to it, and I mean, especially if it gets to a point where they wanted a fresh start, just to have everyone on the same level. I mean, like they did with Star Wars, like I was fine with that, and I think that is potentially the thing. And I love sort of your meme, Ethan. I think that you posted quite a while ago about the Dark Crystal canon, that it's more of a guideline with that image of Captain Barbossa from Pirates of the Caribbean. So yeah, it's just all really exciting, and I'm just trying to think like what I'd like to see with Dark Crystal expanding. I mean, I would just love to see like once sort of things are sort of over with the Age of Resistance period. Like I would love to see stories that take place in different points of time. I mean, as we do see that with the Star Wars books, for example. So I'd love to see some that take place right in the past, where it's just with Gelflings or with Jari Jen. I know he's one of the popular characters in Dark Crystal lore. And again, with thousands of years of history, there is a lot that they can definitely cover. And it's just going, right now, it's just a very exciting time to be a fan of the Dark Crystal. The show is due to come out August the 30th, so only a couple of months to go. And we got a lot of things in motion with the podcast, and there's just a lot to look forward to. So I think we'll definitely wrap up for this episode of Trial by Stone. So I just want to say, thank you to Doug for being the guest on this episode. And how can people find you?
Well, they can find us at the Crystal Shard, the Dark Crystal fan group on Facebook. The more the merrier. Come and add your voice.
There's also a new email address too, the Crystal Shard group at gmail.com. Just if anyone wants to email us or, whatever. We thought it was appropriate.
Yep. We look forward to hearing from you.
Yeah, so of course you can visit the Crystal Shard if you go to facebook.com/groups/Crystal Shard. That's where you can find us all, with Ethan and Jamie and Doug. They're the moderators of the group. And you definitely find me there as well at the Crystal Shard. And I'm always posting about the podcast and sort of getting involved in the conversation on all things Dark Crystal. So it's all very exciting. And yeah, again, thank you so much.
Thanks for having us.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, thanks, stoners.
You've already taken too long, Gelfling. Hurry!
At last, the crystal calls. It is time to return to the castle.
The crystal calls! To the crystal chamber!
So that's all the time I have for this episode of Trial by Stone. If you'd like to get in contact with us, you can do so at darkcrystalpodcast@gmail.com. You can follow us on Facebook at facebook.com/darkcrystalpodcast. We're also on Twitter at darkcrystalpod and on Instagram at darkcrystalpodcast. If you like the podcast and you think that others would love it too, then please spread the word about it. And if you can write a review on Apple Podcasts or even on Facebook, greatly appreciate it. And if you're actually watching this on video on YouTube, don't forget to hit like and hit the subscribe button, and then also hit that bell notification button to be notified of future videos from Trial by Stone. Thank you all so much, and stay tuned for the next episode of Trial by Stone.